we told you about a medical team, mostly from Northwestern Memorial Hospital, that went to China to perform hip and knee replacements. Recently, an even larger Chicago area medical team went back there. Here with that story is Elizabeth Brackett.
Doctors Victoria Brander and David Stolberg can usually be found at Northwestern Orthopedic Institute, working with their patients who have had joint replacement surgery. But 2 weeks a year, they use their training and expertise to help patients halfway around the world. Last November, they were in a large hospital in Chengdu, China, doing hip and knee replacement surgeries for poor patients and checking up on patients they had seen the year before.
We followed up on a number of patients that we operated on at our first visit, which was wonderful. We saw about half of them. We saw patients walking in, they brought their families, they brought food, they brought little presents, they brought pictures of us from the last trip. So the sort of practical, seeing these patients and the practical impact was great.
This year, the two doctors led a team of 61 Chicago area healthcare professionals to 2 separate locations in China to do joint replacement surgeries under a program called Operation Walk.
Part of the purpose for our doing Operation Walk was to train the people that are there to do joint replacement surgery. And on this trip, we actually had the Chinese surgeons, for example, operating with us and in part doing the operation. So in many cases we did both the right and left sides, and they would do one side and we would do the other, and while they were doing it we would sort of assist them.
Arthritis is a neglected disease in developing countries like China, and few joint replacement surgeries are done. Because of that, the doctors say many of their patients had very advanced deterioration in their joints. Patients like this 32-year-old woman who had been unable to walk for 3 years because of her rheumatoid arthritis.
Arthritis in the knees is so severe that she can't straighten her knees out. So not only is the bone rubbing on the bone causing her pain, but it's doing it in a position that makes her crouch, so she can't even stand up straight to walk.
The young woman's mother was terrified as she turned her daughter over to the American doctors. But after bilateral total knee replacements, the news was good.
Yes, your daughter is doing fine. Everything went well.
And 2 days later, Zhang Xiaofang took her first steps in years. That same story was repeated over and over again as the medical team performed an astonishing 81 hip and total knee replacement surgeries in 7 days.
Really stressed the system, I will tell you. We set up operating rooms, 5 operating rooms, which we ran from 6 a.m. till after midnight. We had rotating teams of surgeons and nurses and doctors. There were minor things that we didn't anticipate. For example, one night we had done so many surgeries that we had essentially emptied the hospital's blood bank and the city's blood bank.
Within the next year, Dr. Brander and Dr. Stolberg will return to Chengdu, China to set up the first ever Center for Orthopedic Surgical Training. It will be open to doctors from all around the country. For their next Operation Walk trip, they will go to Ecuador next November. This 76-year-old Chicago businessman is one of the reasons Ecuador will become the next stop for the Chicago Operation Walk team. A former patient himself, Ernie Fruedman was impressed by the work the team had done in China. And like many former patients, he helped fund those trips with his contributions. Now he urged the team to go to Ecuador, the country where Fruedman had grown up after his family had fled from Nazi persecution in 1937.
At a certain time in life, you want to give something back. I'd much rather do it with something where I have 2 parties that I know, Northwestern, who helped me, and Ecuador, who also in a certain way helped me. So it's a much more satisfying thing to do than to just give money to a United Fund.
Patient contributions not only help pay for travel and lodging costs for the Operation Walk team, all of whom donate their time, the contributions also pay for the tons of equipment that is shipped in from Chicago. A huge contribution also comes from the Stryker Company, which donates all the prosthetics that are used. Team members were unpacking some of the 15 crates that had just been returned from China and were making decisions on what would be used for next year's trip to Ecuador.
We're hoping to leave enough equipment to help them start an ICU there for them, because right now they don't have one. It's a very small hospital. It's a nonprofit hospital, so they do a lot of mission trips. This is the first one for joint replacement that they've done, so we're hoping to leave as much equipment as we can.
So despite, or perhaps because, of the tremendous challenges of performing joint replacement surgery in a developing country, the doctors and their team say they are ready to go again.
There's nothing that gives more pleasure, I think, than doing something for someone else that is essentially unreciprocated. And to be able to see a patient go from being in a wheelchair for 15 or 17 years and never thinking they'll walk again to seeing them up walking the next day is an experience of a lifetime.
An experience the team hopes to keep on repeating. For Chicago Tonight, I'm Elizabeth Brackett.
If you'd like more information on the Operation Walk program, you can check out our website at WTTW.com.
Worldwide Chicago segments on Chicago Tonight are made possible in part by a grant from the Boeing Company.